that has been called for Joe Biden that has got 16 states. It was Donald Trump who was leading there. It is Joe Biden who seems to have that state in his kitty. Georgia is another very crucial one. The new filings demand for a better access for campaign observers to locations where the ballots are being processed and counted. The Trump campaign is also seeking to intervene in the state of Pennsylvania as well. It deals with where the ballots received up to 3 days after Election Day can be counted. Remember, this is what is happening in Pennsylvania. A mail-in ballot that will be received tomorrow on Friday will still be accounted for and will be counted as a part of the election process. Now, the governor of Pennsylvania has condemned Donald Trump. He has said that the lawsuit is actually just plain wrong and goes against the very basic principles of American democracy.
Our election officials at the state and local levels should be free to do their jobs without fear, without intimidation, without attacks. These attempts to subvert the democratic process are simply disgraceful. Let me be clear. In Pennsylvania, every vote is going to count. I'm going to fight like hell to protect the vote of every Pennsylvanian. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that every vote counts.
Our goal is to ensure, again, we're being transparent, but also fully accurate, and that the public, you all, can trust the results of the results as an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Now, importantly, as we go through this counting, as the counting is completed, boards at the county and state levels that are also comprised of people from both parties will then review the procedures and counts of the entire elections before the results are certified as official.
Now, a lawsuit has also been filed in Georgia against the counting of ballots that arrived late. The Trump campaign is demanding for a recount of votes in Wisconsin as well. Now, remember, Wisconsin is another very crucial state. This has again been called in for Joe Biden. And Trump's team is alleging that there are irregularities that have been reported, or at least that is what they find, in terms of vote counting reported from several counties. Let's now shift our attention to some other stories now, where after 3 years of officially announcing it, the United States has officially withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, the United Nations regulations has refused to let Trump withdraw from the accord back in 2017. The Paris deal had been drafted in the year 2015 to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change, and it came into force in the November of 2016. Now, the Paris Climate Accord aims to keep the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius till the year 2050. And it also seeks to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to a further goal of about 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, 55 countries are a part of this accord, and they are expected to take stock of the progress that has been made every 5 years to assess the collective inputs by each nation. The future of America's climate change policy hangs on the basis of the election outcome. President Donald Trump and Democrat challenger Joe Biden, who at this point of time is quite clearly leading in the race, undoubtedly have got completely different visions as to where America needs to go for the Paris Climate Accord. Biden has called climate change an existential threat to humanity. He took to Twitter saying that the Biden administration, when it comes into effect, will immediately rejoin the Paris Accord. But even if he were to win the White House, his plan to invest trillions of dollars towards making the United States of America a greener nation will face a deeply divided Congress. While the electoral map appears to be tilting in favor of Biden, it seems that the GOP will retain control of the Senate, and this will of course make it extremely hard for the Biden administration to shepherd a comprehensive climate bill through the upper chamber of the Parliament in the United States. If the Senate remains Republican, it's quite possible that it could. Any legislation will need the consent of the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is said to be extremely close to the incumbent President Donald Trump. The Republican Senate leader from the coal mining state of Kentucky has a long history of opposing any federal action on climate. And nonetheless, the uncertain election outcome does not change the scientific reality of rising temperatures. The burning of fossil fuels and also other human activity continues to warm the earth at a pretty alarming rate. The United States could miss its own Paris Accord commitments to lower the carbon emissions to 26 to 28%, below the 2005 levels by the year 2025. Now, according to a report, the country is on track to cut its emissions between 20 to 27%, depending on how quickly the economy actually recovers from the pandemic. But it will need to cut emissions by about 43% over the next decade to be on track to reach the net zero emissions by the year 2050. This is a goal that the European Union, Japan, South Korea and other nations have set in a push to slow the world's warming.
US Election 2020. Co-powered by Tata Consultancy Services. Transforming India. Co-powered by Myntra. Life's wonderful moments. Styled by Myntra. Driven by Ford. Presenting new Ford Endeavour Sport. Meet the other side of you. In association with Tata Sky Binge Plus. Isko laga dala to full family jingalala.
The second wave of COVID-19 infections is sending shock waves across the European continent. The latest nation to in fact face the brunt of the second wave of COVID-19 infections is Italy. Now, the worst affected nation during the first wave is now again imposing some pretty strict restrictions. Now, Italy's richest and the most populous region, Lombardy, is around the financial capital of Milan, has been put under a partial lockdown yet again. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has announced that the nationwide curfew, and he said that the latest restrictions are being imposed in order to slow down the spread of the virus. While the country is anxiously waiting for a vaccine, the Prime Minister has urged all citizens to adhere to the restrictions.
Persone che vanno in terapia intensiva. Rispetto alle persone contagiate, è vero, sale il numero degli asintomatici, diminuisce in percentuale il numero delle persone che vanno in terapia intensiva, ma è vero che i numeri complessivi sono in costante aumento e comportano un'alta probabilità che molte regioni superino le soglie critiche delle terapie intensive e delle terapie mediche già nelle prossime settimane.
Earlier, the Italian government had divided the country into 3 zones, red, orange and yellow, and this had been done to distinguish the intensity of the spread of the virus. The zoning depends on a different number of factors, including the local infection rates, hospital occupancy, etc. Giuseppe Conte said that the red zones will include large northern regions of Lombardy, and also the neighbouring region of Piedmont, along with Calabria and Italy's southern toe, and the tiny alpine region of Valle d'Aosta. In the critically affected red zones, people will be allowed only to leave their homes for work, health reasons, etc. Emergencies, bars, restaurants and other shops will be shut. High school classes and those for the final 2 years of middle school will be moved online. However, unlike Italy's national lockdown in spring, all factories will still remain open. In the orange zone that includes Puglia in Italy's heel and also the island of Sicily, the shops can still remain open and people can only move freely within their towns and cities. The rest of the country's 20 regions, including Lazio, around the capital city of Rome, will be in the yellow zone, meaning that there will be no restrictions other than those that are imposed nationwide. Now, under the nationwide restrictions, regardless of zoning, restaurants and bars must shut by 6 p.m. Cinemas, restaurants, museums and gyms will remain shut, and shopping centres are ordered to be closed at weekends. Now, all high school classes are to be held online, while younger children will still be allowed to attend school in person. Now, Italy has seen about 352 COVID-related deaths in the last 24 hours. While the daily surge in the number of infections has risen to over 30,000. Well, that's all the time we have in this edition of the News Bulletin. And to stay updated with everything that is happening around the world, you can also log on to our website, wionnews.com. Thanks for watching.
America voted on November 3rd. And Trump and Biden remain locked in a nail-biter. The two candidates could not be more different from each other, and neither could their spouses. While First Lady Melania Trump is a former model and a naturalized US citizen, Professor Jill Biden has been America's second lady for 8 years. Who will be the country's next First Lady? What influence does the First Lady have in American politics? Watch the First Ladies Club on WION Wide Angle this week.
Well, thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh. This is a special edition of our broadcast. We'll be getting you all the latest updates in terms of what is happening in the final stretch of counting in the big American elections. It is Joe Biden who at this point of time looks like he may have the lead to cross that magic number of 270 that he needs in the Electoral College. We'll be getting you all the updates, but first let's take a look as to what is making headlines at this hour. Democrat nominee Joe Biden wins the crucial battleground state of Michigan to flip another state that had been won by President Donald Trump in 2016. With Michigan 16 in the electoral votes, Biden now has a total tally of 264, just 6 shy from the magic number of 270. But President Donald Trump's campaign files several lawsuits in the states of Pennsylvania, Michigan and Georgia, laying down the groundwork for contesting the battleground states. President Trump says that the integrity of the electoral system in the United States has been compromised. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed claims that success has been achieved after he ordered a military offensive against the regional Tigray government in response to an attack on an army base. The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed places the Tigray region under a state of emergency for about 6 months. Meanwhile, India has condemned Pakistan for transferring the management of Kartarpur Gurudwara. It said that it runs against the spirit of the Kartarpur Sahib corridor and also the religious sentiments of the Sikh community. India went on to add that this decision by Pakistan only goes on to expose the reality of the intentions of the Pakistani government. And Pakistan has also now reported the highest daily increase in the number of deaths due to COVID-19 since the 31st of July. 26 deaths have been reported in the last 24 hours, along with more than 1,000 cases of new infections, making this the biggest surge in the last 3 months. In an effort to make its labour market more attractive for foreign workers, Saudi Arabia is now planning to reform its decades-old controversial kafala system to ease the restrictions on foreign workers.
US Election 2020. Co-powered by Tata Consultancy Services. Transforming India. Co-powered by Myntra. Life's wonderful moments. Styled by Myntra. Driven by Ford. Presenting new Ford Endeavour Sport. Meet the other side of you. In association with Tata Sky Binge Plus. Isko laga dala to full family jingalala.
All right, we are right down into what can be described as the final over in the presidential elections 2020 for the United States. The counting is in the last stretch. It has been a real bit of a nail-biter, a cliffhanger. That is how it's been described. But now there appears to be some bit of certainty as to which way Americans have voted. Remember, the magic number in the United States Electoral College is 270. And at this point of time, as things stand, it is Joe Biden who seems to be inching closer to that magic number. He's got 264 electoral votes, while Donald Trump has managed only about 214 electoral votes so far. Even though Joe Biden has taken a lead, he's quite clearly in the lead. He's just 6 short of that magic number of 270 before he can actually claim victory. But still, many of the states where the counting is still taking place, the the way in which the counting is taking place, it still points that there could be a bit of uncertainty in some of these states. And Donald Trump, according to the rules, the election rules in the United States, can ask for a recount in any state where his margin of losing is less than 1%. Donald Trump has already said that he'll resort to legal action. There could be recount votes that could be seen. So this number, as it stands at this point of time, is still provisional. Things could still change. Remember, Donald Trump yesterday shocked America when he said that he does not want any more of the votes to be counted. He said that all the votes that are being counted are essentially mail-in ballots, and therefore he said that the results should be declared as things stood yesterday. But there's a lot of water that's flowed since then under the bridge, and it is now Joe Biden who's decisively marching on towards that magic figure of 270. Let's get you a breakup of the different states that still matter, the crucial swing states in the United States. And let's start with Pennsylvania. This, of course, has been one of the most controversial of the states. Pennsylvania has got 20 electoral votes. At this point of time, as things stand, 50.9% is where Donald Trump is. Biden has got about 47.9% of the votes that have been counted. But Pennsylvania is an extremely problematic state for Donald Trump. What has actually happened is that Pennsylvania allows for every single vote that arrives with the election officials till tomorrow, till Friday. All of those will be counted. At this point of time, Donald Trump leads. He'd even prematurely declared a victory. He held a 675,000 vote lead, but his lead has now narrowed down to about 300,000 votes. Things can very quickly change. It's a tight race, and many of the mail-in ballots that are coming in are all going towards Joe Biden. And this is one of the reasons why Donald Trump says that mail-in ballots, he feels, is something that allows for a room for some kind of electoral fraud. Although the election officials there are saying that that is not the case at all, and they will continue to count the ballots that will come in even until tomorrow evening in the United States. And Pennsylvania was won by a very small margin in the year 2016. It's a crucial state because it has got about 20 seats in the Electoral College, and the way that it swings is going to be crucial. But let's point it out to our viewers. Joe Biden does not need to win Pennsylvania. He can become the president even if he were to lose Pennsylvania, because he's already done enough. He's got 264 seats in his kitty. But for Trump, he needs to win Pennsylvania. Let's now shift our attention to the next big state that we are taking a look at. This is Michigan and Wisconsin. At this point of time, a lot of pollsters have already called both Michigan and Wisconsin for Joe Biden. These were two states that had been won by President Trump in 2016. But this time round, both these two swing states, Michigan is very crucial. It has got 16 electoral votes. Biden has secured 50.3% of the votes. Trump is trailing behind him, and he's got about 48.1% of the votes. And the stakes could not have been higher, but Joe Biden has won both the states by a very narrow margin. In Michigan, this was crucial, and it is the victory in Michigan that's actually paved the way for Joe Biden to get this decisive lead on Donald Trump. Now, Joe Biden has got 49.6% of the votes in Wisconsin, and Donald Trump is, of course, trailing him by a very narrow margin. The margin could not have been narrower. He's behind him by a margin of just about 0.6%. It is a razor-thin margin, but both Michigan and Wisconsin have slipped away from the Democrats. They had slipped away from the Democrats 4 years ago, but now they're back decisively in the Democrat camp. And this two states is what has made the difference for Joe Biden. Now, Biden is just 6 electoral votes away from being called the President of the United States of America. Nevada has exactly those many seats. It's got 6 electoral votes, and Biden here is leading by a narrow margin. He's up by 49.3%. Trump is trailing behind him, 48.7%. The margin is just 0.6%, but the voting and the counting of votes will actually go down to the wire. The state of Nevada, in many ways, is make or break for Donald Trump. Nevada is still counting the votes. Every election has its challenges, but this one particularly was one of the most unpredictable and divisive ones. Unlike the previous election, states this time are dealing with an avalanche of mail-in ballots. At least about 103 million people, remember, that's a huge margin, that's a record in itself, voted even before the polling day began on the 3rd of November. That is almost 74% of all the votes that had been cast in comparison with the year 2016, and it is mail-in ballots that in many ways has complicated this election and has also made President Donald Trump question the results that are coming out. Meanwhile, Donald Trump declared victory for himself. He said that counting does not need to take place anymore and that the results should be declared on the basis of the projections that were coming out yesterday evening. The President Trump said that he wants to go to the Supreme Court. He's accused the Democrats of trying to steal the election from him. This is something that he has been saying right from the beginning. He said that the only way Joe Biden can win the election is if he were to steal the election from him. And he goes on to state that this is a case of electoral fraud that is now denying him victory in this election. Donald Trump has already declared that Republicans are the winners, and he's already announced a big celebration.
For the good of this nation, this is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won. So I just want to thank you.
Now, on the other hand, Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden has said that the results may not be known until Wednesday morning, and that is till Wednesday night. And he's urged that voters should remain patient because he now says that the Democrats are well and truly on their way for a victory.
We knew this was going to go wrong, but who knew we're going to... Every time I'd walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this." Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your patience is great.
All right, keep the faith. That has been Joe Biden's rallying call. Now, count every vote. This also is the new battle cry for voters who are protesting against President Donald Trump in the aftermath of an action-packed election night. The world has got its eyes glued to the U.S. election results. With counting still underway, it's actually still soon to make a call in this election that has been a very grueling and a bitter affair so far. Now, let's tell you as to what's been happening in New York, where the protesters took to the streets. They chanted the words, "Demand democracy," and "Every vote counts," as hundreds of people wound their way through the city. Now, thousands of people marched past luxury stores on Manhattan's Fifth Avenue in what they called a celebration of justice, fairness, and democracy.
Democracy. Man, democracy.
Now, similar rallies also took place in Chicago with a large sign that said, "Count every vote." People marched through the city's streets. The outcome of the hard-fought contest is fairly near. The presidency at this point of time appears is going towards the Democrats. It's still early to call, but this is what the trends point out. But people want that every vote that has been cast needs to be counted. The Philadelphians have also expressed a fair bit of disappointment on Wednesday morning after the election day that the results were not in yet. Remember, generally, in the American setting, results are declared by the next morning. Once the election night is over, the counting is pretty much all but done and you have a decisive winner. But this time around, that is not happening, essentially because of the mail-in ballots. Meanwhile, 200 people gathered in the Oakland City in California Hall after President Donald Trump called for a halt to the ballot tabulations with the election outcome still unsettled. Trump wanted that he be declared a winner on the basis of the votes that have been counted so far yesterday. Meanwhile, in Boston as well, the residents voiced the same concern and the same sentiment. The Trump's campaign had claimed that it had won Pennsylvania, where votes are still being counted, and votes that will arrive by Friday that have got a postmark that they were posted on the 3rd of November, even they will be counted as well. Now, Trump has claimed victory in Pennsylvania. Trump's claims that he's leading the battleground state has, of course, evaporated as more ballots are being counted, and his lead in Pennsylvania is also getting narrow. That state, remember, has got 20 electoral seats and is going to be make or break for Trump. Now, Kamala Harris has also tweeted her support for the count all votes demand. Meanwhile, it is not just the Americans who are on tenterhooks with the result that is to come out of this election. This is a period of uncertainty because the person who sits in the White House is indeed the most powerful man in the world. And the policies that come out of the White House impact the rest of the world. The America's allies and rivals are watching this election very closely. They have their own agendas and hopes pinned on the result of this election. Our next report gets you all the details.
Внимание всего мира сейчас приковано к президентским выборам США.
Günaydın değerli izleyiciler. Ben Uğur Ömer. Amerika'da seçim heyecanı yaşanıyor.
This is the ABC's coverage of the US election, where nothing has changed.
Cuộc đua đến Nhà Trắng đang chứng kiến sự bám đuổi sát sao giữa hai ứng cử viên.
خوش آمدید. انتخابات ریاست جمهوری آمریکا.
Hello and welcome to our special broadcast.
A tight election is always exciting to watch, even more so when the prize is the White House. The world is watching America closely. Its choice will shape the world for the next 4 years. For American allies, it's a situation they face every 4 years. Partners like the UK aren't too worried about the results. The fundamentals of their relationship remain strong.
The UK-US relationship is in great shape, and we're confident that it will go from strength to strength whichever candidate wins the election.
But if it's a toss-up between Trump and Biden, Europe will be backing the Democrat. Transatlantic ties have deteriorated under Trump. A Biden victory would reset the relationship. Some officials are not hiding their preference. This is what the chairman of Germany's Foreign Affairs Committee tweeted on election night. He says Germany is not prepared to work with Trump anymore. One ally that will be rooting for Trump is Israel. Trump's efforts to normalize Israel's ties with the Arab world have not been forgotten.
If the next US president carries on with current state policy, it will be able to lead to more peace agreements. A concessionary policy will get the peace deal stuck.
So the allies are divided. What about America's rivals? For the likes of China and Iran, this election is make or break. China's state newspaper, Global Times, is openly mocking the elections, comparing it to disputed polls in developing nations. Beijing has realized that there is bipartisan support for a tougher stance on China. Officially, it says it has no position on the issue.
The US election is an internal affair. China does not take a position on this issue.
On Iran, the two candidates differ substantially. Trump is likely to continue his maximum pressure campaign, but Biden might consider restarting talks. A Biden victory bodes well for Iran, but much like China, it is not making its preference known.
The outcome of the US presidential election will not have an impact on our policy towards the United States. Our policy is clear and does not change. It does not matter to us who comes and goes.
This is a defining moment for the entire world. The 2020 elections have not just divided Americans, it has created faultiness in the Western Bloc. The world is watching with bated breath as the American election goes down to the wire. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
US election 2020. Co-powered by Tata Consultancy Services, transforming India. Co-powered by Myntra, life's wonderful moments, styled by Myntra. Driven by Ford, presenting new Ford Endeavour Sport. Meet the other side of you. In association with Tata Sky Binge Plus, Isko Laga Dala to full family Jingalala.
Meanwhile, in Ethiopia, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is ordered for a military offensive against the regional Tigray government in response to an attack on the army base. Now, Ethiopia's government has now declared a state of emergency starting today for a period of 6 months. A statement issued by Abiy Ahmed's office has said that the Federal Council of Ministers made the declaration recognizing that illegal and violent activities within the national regional state of Tigray are endangering the constitution and also the constitutional order in the nation. Now, heavy fighting broke out in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region on Wednesday after the Prime Minister launched military operations in response to what he described as an attack on the federal troops. The tensions have been escalating since September when Tigray had held regional elections in defiance of the federal government, which called the vote as completely illegal. Now, Ethiopia's Tigray regional government on Wednesday prohibited the country's defense forces from entering into the region. In a statement, the government spokesperson has warned of proportional measures for any damage to people or property in the region. He's also accused the federal government of deploying troops to invade Tigray to try and calm down the people of Tigray into submission by force.
The authoritarian unitary government that has illegally usurped power of the federal government is committing treason and injustice by forging alliance with external forces and selling out the country's sovereignty in a bid to subdue people of Tigray.
Meanwhile, the United States has urged an immediate end to hostilities in Ethiopia's Tigray region in a statement amidst the political tumult in the United States after its presidential elections. The Secretary of State, who could well be on his way out, Mike Pompeo, has said, and I quote him here, "We are saddened by the tragic loss of life and urge immediate action to restore peace and to de-escalate tensions. The protection of civilian safety and security is essential." Now, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also called for immediate measures to de-escalate tensions in Tigray to ensure a peaceful resolution of the dispute.
The Secretary General expresses his alarm over the reported armed clashes in the Tigray region of Ethiopia and calls for immediate measures to de-escalate tensions and to ensure a peaceful resolution to the dispute. He underlines the importance of the stability of Ethiopia for the Horn of Africa region. The Secretary General renews the commitment of the United Nations and its partners in the region to support the government of Ethiopia in its reform efforts aimed at building a peaceful and secure future for all of its peoples.
Well, that's all the time we have in this edition of the News Bulletin. And to stay updated with everything that is happening around the world, you can also log on to our website, WIONnews.com. Thanks for watching.
America voted on November 3rd. And Trump and Biden remain locked in a nail-biter. The two candidates could not be more different from each other, and neither could their spouses. While First Lady Melania Trump is a former model and a naturalized U.S. citizen, Professor Jill Biden has been America's second lady for 8 years. Who will be the country's next First Lady? What influence does the First Lady have in American politics? Watch the First Ladies Club on WION Wide Angle this week.